Good afternoon and welcome to Facing the Nation for December 8th, 2023. As is customary, I'll ask you to call up a friend, call up a neighbor, and let them know that Facing the Nation is on. Of course, you can get us on Channel 6, on our social media platform, the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, the APNUFC page on Facebook, and the People's National Congress Reform YouTube channel page as well. So go ahead and call somebody up and let them know that we're on right now, because today's discussion is going to be a very important one, a serious and sobering one, I also believe, with my guest for today. My guest today is no stranger to Facing the Nation, and he's no stranger, period, to Guyanese and even persons further afield. Welcome, Dr. David Hinds.
Thank you very much, Shanika. And I know I have been missing you. I should have been on a couple of weeks, but here I am, and it's always a pleasure to be on with you. As I usually say, we started with you being on the other side, taking questions from me, and it's only fair that I take questions from you in return.
Thank you so much. Of course, it's always a privilege to have you here. Today, of course, I wanted to start off on a very sobering issue. The nation, of course, is in mourning. We would have lost 5 extremely valuable members of the Guyana Defense Force and the nation at large. I mean, they were persons with their own expertise, and they took their jobs very seriously. We have, of course, former Brigadier Mr. Beaton. There was also, let me make sure that I get all my names correctly. Let me pull it up. There was also Staff Sergeant Jason Khan, who is a very, very close friend of mine, more like a brother, I would say. We became family over, particularly the last few years. He's someone I attended school with as well. Lieutenant Colonel Welcome was also among those who would have perished. And, as you also had Colonel, if I'm pronouncing his name right, Shahud, and of course, Lieutenant Colonel Charles, who was the pilot on that helicopter that we are being told went down. They are awaiting an investigation to determine what really happened, what caused the accident. But, at this time, as the nation mourns, and of course, their families mourn their loss, the way it has happened, I, of course, want to give my sincere condolences to all the family members, friends, colleagues who are feeling it. I actually ventured into GDF yesterday. Of course, as I said, I'm close with Staff Sergeant Khan to go assist with the wife, and I I honestly, I could not go further when I got to the officers' mess because, the distress that you saw, even from the other officers were there. It was very difficult to witness, especially when you see men break down the way that many of them did yesterday. It was very difficult, and I basically left. So I know the GDF, those families, those friends, it is a very, very difficult moment for them. And I know as well for the nation, it is extremely difficult. So I just wanted to, give my condolences before we begin. I don't know if you have any comments on that before we continue.
Certainly, certainly. I just want to join you on behalf of our party, the Working People's Alliance, and
Mhm.
behalf, I want to extend condolences to the families of the fallen soldiers, and they are fallen soldiers. Um,
Mhm.
this tragic loss, and condolences to the Guyana Defense Force on the loss. I describe the 5 soldiers last night on my program as 5 beautiful brothers, and I want to repeat that here today. 5 beautiful brothers who were the first martyrs of this war that is being imposed upon us by Venezuela. And I want to salute those brothers, and I want to emphasize the point that when people volunteer to put on the uniform, the military uniform, and to
Mhm.
stand in defense of their country, it's one of the highest undertakings that one can do as a citizen. And I don't believe that as a country we give enough recognition to our military people. Often they're demonized by sections of our establishment. They are not seen as nation builders. They're not seen as contributing to the patrimony of the nation because, they're not making money. But as I said, and I'm going to repeat it here, um, our soldiers are worth more than gold, especially at this moment when we, as a small nation without the protection of big tanks and big technology and all the things that big armies have, our soldiers are much more precious because, in a sense, they're facing the gladiators of our time, almost with a slingshot. But as we know from the biblical story, David eventually won against Goliath. And our soldiers are the Davids of our time. And I hope that this moment brings our nation to the understanding of the value of those citizens, who have taken the brave stand of putting on the uniform and defending our nation in circumstances where they do not enjoy the kind of protection and hardware that other mighty armies around the world are able to enjoy. That makes their effort much more valuable. Give thanks.
Yes. And with that, of course, we do know that we have 2 other persons who would have survived that incident. And of course, at least up to probably about 12 today, we know that they haven't been able to bring those survivors out. Lieutenant Crawford and Corporal Dwayne, because of course the terrain, as we're told, is a bit difficult and visibility, etc., and means to do so. So they are still working to get them out of the area, and of course, um, once that priority is made to get the bodies of the fallen soldiers out as well. So to this time. They haven't been able to get those two survivors out, but of course, our prayers are with them as well, and their families, and we hope that they have a full recovery, and of course, all the necessary things are afforded to them in terms of maybe counseling, everything that will become necessary. And I even want to say for our fallen soldiers, I hope that our government will do better in helping to care for the families of our first responders in situations that we have found ourselves in, because when incidents like these happen and the main breadwinner is away and they have children that are left behind and spouses that have everything else to deal with, that we as a nation should be able to care, for those persons as well. So I hope the government as well is looking into how they will handle those situations after this. Well, as we go in, we know that the issue of the Guyana Venezuela controversy has taken some turn over the last few weeks. You have been talking about it on your show. We have been seeing what is happening in the news. The latest being these decrees that were made Tuesday evening by Maduro. And even last night, as we were all going through and dealing with the issue of the fallen soldiers, we saw that when you Google Promenade Gardens, you were coming up with Promenade Gardens in Spanish, and it says the Venezuela. So here we're also watching at what we will call maybe soft, cyber setting, where the persons are manipulating and changing information. Let's talk about that, Dr. Hinds. I know you've been a part of politics for a very long time. You've seen many of these situations played out before, but I do think we are now at a place that we've never been before. And you can shed your light on that as we discuss it. What are your thoughts at the place that we're at now?
Well, I just want to start by saying that the renewed Venezuelan aggression towards Guyana dating back to 1962 spans my whole lifetime. I was born in 1959. So my whole life has been spent in the backdrop of Venezuelan aggression against Guyana. And so for my generation, it's a clear and a present danger. And I want to start off by saying that I notice some people are talking about Mad Maduro and all kinds of things, especially people on the PPP side. And I just want to say that Maduro is not a madman. Maduro is acting quite lucidly, and Maduro is acting in the tradition of what Venezuela has been doing for the last 60 years. And it's obvious that the Venezuelan government has a very, very clear game plan about what they want out of the present circumstances. And in many regards, Guyana has been found wanting. Guyana has been found wanting in this regard. I think the Venezuelans are very clear. They've made it very clear that they do not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICJ. It means, therefore, that whatever the ruling of the ICJ would be, Venezuela would not be guided, their actions would not be guided by the ICJ ruling. Venezuela has been stressing the Geneva Agreement. And I think that is where, as a nation, we have to pay attention. I think Venezuela is ginning up all that they're doing in order to bring Guyana to the table outside of the ICJ, to bring us to the table and for them to bargain to see what they can get. And I think we have to see that that is their strategy. My question is, what is the Guyana strategy? And, I do not subscribe, Shanika, to this whole notion that because of what's happening in Venezuela, our critique of this government must stop. I think that is nonsensical. Because let me make very clear why I am saying that. One of the factors that is driving Venezuela is obviously internal politics. That is, that the Maduro government is using the Venezuela-Guyana border issue in order to get political mileage at home. Now, that is one factor. It's not the only factor, because we have what is called levels of engagement, and therefore there has to be levels of analysis. Now, so the Venezuelan government is using the issue for internal. The Guyana government is doing exactly the same thing, partly by their own negligence. You do not find the amount of oil that we have found in an area that your neighbor is claiming, and you do not figure into your plan a military and political strategy anticipating that Venezuela will come after you. And this government has been spending its time beating Guyanese, misusing that money from oil, using the money to keep itself in power. So by its neglect, it is using the Venezuelan issue for internal political survival. And when Venezuela sounded the bell weeks ago, this government behaved as though it was just another day. It was just another, they went about their business. They called the opposition leader. And when one thought that these people were serious, they were calling the opposition leader to begin a national engagement, to come out with a national strategy. It is clear that they called the opposition leader in order to make them look good. So like Maduro, they are using the Venezuelan issue for their own political survival at home. They're holding what they're calling national rallies. But anybody can see that those are PPP rallies. A national rally would include the opposition and would have on that platform Mr. Aubrey Norton, at least Mr. Aubrey Norton, along with the leaders of the PPP. Anything short of that is not a national engagement. And so the PPP, like Maduro, is also playing games with this Venezuela situation and using it as a means of political survival at home. I just want to say that to begin with.
I definitely agree with you on that, Dr. Hinds. And, a part of what I'm seeing as well is from my own view, is as if they are seeing the weakest group of people leading a country and deciding, well, let's see how we will take advantage of this situation at the time as everything is happening. And, as you rightfully said, when the first engagement started with the opposition, it was the opportune time for a clear plan and guidance and approach in dealing with it. But as you would have seen, even in the statement issued yesterday by the leader of the opposition, it's what you're saying of research, because certain issues and important things that you should have had the opposition on and dealing with this issue, it was not there. And even a lot of the advice that was even given was not used, And with the current situation that we're in, it is definitely, if it's not time now, if you don't see the need for this thing to be dealt with on a national front, then Guyana and Guyanese are surely in trouble with the current government. And one of the other things that I hope that Guyanese take away from this entire experience and what we are facing is the importance of having a proper government, the importance of voting and ensuring that the vote that you would have made is protected so that your country can be protected, you know?
I want to pick up on one of the um, terms that you use, a proper government. You see, you don't know whether your government is proper or not until that government is tested.
Tested.
And there are two things that have tested our government over the last 3 years. One is the massive oil wealth by our standards that are coming to Guyana and the capacity of the government to manage that wealth.
Manage it.
And we know the government has been woeful in that regard. And now the Venezuela issue has really tested our government. Now, let me hasten to say that there are some objective weaknesses of any government in Guyana, whether the PPP government, the PNC coalition government. No government in Guyana represents the vast majority of the people. No government in Guyana would get the vast amount of support from all of the peoples of Guyana. So any government in Guyana would start off with a crisis of legitimacy. And so therefore, it is incumbent upon any government in Guyana to, among other things, try to govern in a way that legitimizes the government. This government doesn't recognize that. Now, let me get closer to what I'm trying to say here. Here is it, we are at war. We're a divided nation. Not because we divide ourselves, it's the circumstances of life that have brought us here. We have an army that is of predominantly one ethnic group. That ethnic group has complaints against the government of another ethnic group. That in itself becomes a challenge when you're at war. No, I am not saying the PPP created this problem, but the PPP should recognize that it's a problem and say, wait a minute, we need those soldiers to really be in the front line of our defense. Who is best to rally those soldiers? It is their representatives, people who they trust politically. Let me call Mr. Norton, because he is better able to rally those troops than we can. Not because we build it so. That is our history has made Guyana. So let us bring in, you should have been doing that every day, but at least now we're at war. Let's bring Mr. Norton. Mr. Norton, please come in. Let's sit down in this war room and let us together rally our people. Because listen, we cannot stand up to Venezuela with tanks. We cannot, those people have 200,000 people in uniform. They have all kind of advanced tanks. So our defense strategy has to be a creative strategy. And it must start with bringing the representatives of our people. So when Guyanese of all races, classes, and ethnicity look up, they see Guyana. You can't say not a blade of grass. And when you look up, you see one party.
Correct.
One party. And so this government is so hard is. And part of it is that they have had no political upbringing. No political upbringing, and Guyanese would know what I mean. When the people say, you don't have upbringing, you know what that is. They've had no political upbringing. But I think that they have no commitment to Guyana as a civilization. Guyana is a place where you come, you transact, you make money, you do all these things that people do materially. It is not a civilization. As we say in the folk, you know your neighbor spring berry here, which is not an easy statement. When you say your neighbor spring berry here, you're talking about a place in which you are spiritually connected to. And so whether you make money or not, you started with this
Right.
place as a civilization, a place in which you are hugging it because that's all you have. And then you begin there and then you make a living. But you don't start by saying, this is a place to make a living, whether it's as a civilization or not. If you start there, then you're not committed to defending the place as a place where your navel string, as we say, your navel string. That's the problem with the PPP. It's an ideological problem in the way they see Guyana. And if they cannot, as a party, defend this country on their own, bring in people who at least see the place as a civilization that is worth defending.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. And, as you talk about, we see comments, especially over the last, I would say last 3 weeks or so, where even as we talk about the Venezuela issue, that persons make all sorts of comments, and some people say they should send the people they're giving all the money to, and who should not who else shouldn't be a part of it, and all of that kind of thing happening on the social media platform that gives way to some of the things that that you're mentioning there. And I really feel that personally that we as well have to find a way as a nation, because of course what I believe, or well, not what I believe, what I know would stem those kind of comments, as we started out by talking, it's the way the government of the day operates. In an era where we're talking about being one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and you have persons there that basically can't even buy certain greens. People will tell you cooking stew whole week. You find some kind of stew because you can't afford the greens in the market, and you have all these things happening. We saw a message from the president on November 9th of 2023, where he declared that he will give a 25,000 bonus, and that he will come back shortly to talk about, the public servants increase. And today we're at December 8th. Salaries are about to be paid for December month, and nobody has heard anything. So these are, I think, some of the issues. The fact that this one Guyana in uplifted commerce that we talk about, where you see that level of operation from the government that has brought persons to the place, of disgust. And despite we're in this situation we find ourselves in, some people are saying, what, we don't ever want to get involved as Guyanese. We don't want to get involved in a war that has been a war that is coming to our door, supposedly coming to our door. And that in itself, I think, is very instructive of where we are as a nation when we have come to the place to make those statements. And I want us to, at this point, because we've seen it and we're hearing it and we understand why, how do we deal with that in this time? Or how do we get ourselves out of that at this time? Your thought.
Shanika, we don't have equal partners in this struggle for nationhood. It's the test of nationhood. And the type of society that we have evolved into being, it's not we're not an easy place. England, over time, they've developed a sense of their Britishness, and they've been doing that for centuries. We have not had time. Our people came out of enslavement and they went straight into colonialism, at no time to really reflect on what enslavement means and how we move into a new nation. They moved from battling the enslavers to battling the colonialists. And we have not time. Our brothers and sisters came as indentured laborers, and they plunged into the mess. Indentured servitude ended, and they are plunged into the colonial thing. Colonialism ended, and we are plunged into a world that didn't make allowance for us. When the victors of the Second World War sat down in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and they created a new world order, Guyana was not a nation. They were not creating a world for us. And so when we became independent in 1966, we became independent in a world that was not created for us. And we brought all our issues with us from colonialism, from slavery way back, and we have not had time to reflect. So we are plunged into nation building in a hostile world with all our issues. And so therefore we are a nation with issues. And any government, it's incumbent on any government to pay attention to that. But more so, a government that is in charge of the government at this critical era. You know, if I can give a pass to the previous governments, I can't give a pass to this government, because this government has the means by which to do things that other governments did not have. And rather than using oil to cement the nation, they're using the oil resources in order to divide the nation further. And that is a crime against humanity. It is a crime against humanity. And so therefore, where are we at this hour? I think those of us who feel very strongly about Guyana as a civilization, Guyana as part of a Caribbean civilization, Guyana that is a particular formation, given the history that we have come from, we have to forge forward and try to forge something of a nation out of the ruins that the PPP has visited upon us. And so it is incumbent, I think, on people like Aubrey Norton, people like myself, to look Guyanese in the eye and to say, look, we have our issues with the way this country is governed. And we know that you are well aware of these issues. And we are saying to you, continue to fight to make Guyana a democratic, livable space. But in this hour, take our word that we have to live for another day and to stand with Guyana. Whether you're a soldier or you're a public servant or you are someone living outside of Guyana, we need all the moral and physical and spiritual support now. And we want to say to you that do not forget your heart, but let your heart drive you into a place of patriotic connection to your country. Not a patriotism of feel good and just waving a flag, but a patriotism to see Guyana pass this tragedy to another day. It's a difficult undertaking for our people. And they need those of us who they look up to give them the confidence that they're not making the wrong decision in standing in this country. And so I think that's what we have to do now. We have to pick up the pieces and build scattered and to forge some kind of nationalism out of this mess that we're in. And I am confident that our people are sensible enough with their thank God that we have had social media for the last 3 years. And what we have been able to do is to do a kind of public education among our supporters, among the wider Guyanese community. And we have a much more informed citizenry today than 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And I'm confident that they will see through the mess and situate themselves in a way that they will make their bodies and their souls a barrier between Venezuela aggression and our survival as a nation and a civilization.
Yes. I totally agree, Dr. Hinds, on that. And, it is our duty to help build that moral again and get us to where we need to be as we handle this situation, and also continue to fight for the reasons that when the time comes for the next general and regional elections, people understand the importance of ensuring that those elections are won free and fair, and for ensuring that the eligible votes are counted, and the country gets a government that will deal with situations as they come in an appropriate manner, and a government that will do the job that it should be doing for all of the nation's people. The steps that we must take, we don't just leave them at this, but we have to also take them forward as we go. I know I didn't hear you say anything about it just now, but I know one of the things that people have begun to speak about, and I want to hear your views on this, because now I'm even hearing persons who, weren't too comfortable with the talk of, a similar thing to national service as we knew it back then. And, how can something like that be integrated again that will help to build the importance of, maintaining a certain level of understanding about your country, your territory, and even when it comes to the representation. People have talked, I believe they say that in Venezuela they have something similar. When you reach a certain age, you have to go to. What are your thoughts on that now, as this is becoming, a discussion even at this time?
I think at this time, everything that is sensible, that points to advancing the trajectory of nationhood should be on the table. As far as national service is concerned, I have heard people in my community, people outside of my community, people of my generation speak about what national service did to change their lives. I was never a member of the National Service, so I cannot speak from a personal standpoint. But from testimonies of people that I know, people, like I said, in my community, people I went to school with, of what National Service did to change their lives. And my own study of National Service in other similar situation, or similar societies to Guyana, makes me a supporter of some form of national service. Now, when you say national service, some people will bring up all kinds of political memories and so on. But we don't have to do it the same way as we did it 40 years ago. We cannot do it the same way we did it 40 years ago. It is the concept. What do you want national service to do? You cannot.
This era.
We are in a very hostile neighborhood. Venezuela is next door. The largest oil reserves. We have the largest oil find. This neighborhood is a global neighborhood. And we have to understand that. And we cannot depend as a first step on Brazil or America or somewhere else to defend us. As a first step, we have to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
In the United States, they may stand with us today. Nobody knows if the presidency changes next year, where America will stand. We don't know where Brazil will stand if there is a change in government there. We see the Surinamese are now trying, at least one party in Suriname, to link the new River Triangle issue to the Venezuelan issue. We are in a dangerous neighborhood. We see one country marched in to another country, Russia marching in
To
to,
you.
to Ukraine. We see an occupying force in Israel. Israel is an occupying force,
Yeah.
waging war against the people in their own land. What makes us feel that if Venezuela walks over that border tomorrow, that all the Americans will come and chase them out? We do not know. We do not know. And so this is a time that we have to do everything to build a national community and to build a people who are at least morally able to stand up. I lived through the Castro revolution, the Cuban revolution, where they survived 90 miles off the most powerful country in the world. And I remember when there would be barks from Washington, Castro would mobilize 1 million people, 2 million people in that square. And he would stand up there and speak to them for 2-3 hours. And that made a difference in terms of keeping the big neighbor from marching in to Cuba. And I think we have to go down the same road where we mobilize our people to stand up as a shield, because militarily we are no match. I do believe that we have to now have a military strategy. We have to develop some kind of army that is going to be able to at least initiate our defense.
Yeah.
You see, but while we are doing that, we have to mobilize our people. And so national service becomes a medium through which we can mobilize, especially our young people, to be Guyanese and to value what Guyana means. You see, I am poor. You know, I work for a good salary, but that doesn't make me rich. And so I believe in making money.
Yeah.
But I do not like when a country's philosophy is to tell its citizens your purpose in life is to be a hustler and to just make money. I believe that our philosophy has to be that we have to create a humane country that allows all of our peoples to realize their material circumstances and realize their material aspirations, meaning to work for a livable wage, to have excess money that they can invest and to live comfortably. I do not like the philosophy of the PPP that Guyana is a place to make money. And I am saying Guyana must be a place where human beings can live, because when our foreparents walked out of those plantations, they decided that they were going to turn the slave plantation into a livable space. And they took their hard-earned cash money and invested in lands. And they engaged in a philosophy, the village philosophy, that turned those lands into oases of civilization that you and I and all Guyanese can have a place where we say our neighbors drink berry, I drink company water, because our foreparents instilled in us a philosophy of civilization, not a philosophy of hustling and come make money and get rich, and that's all to life. So we need to seize these times and to begin to orient a new philosophy in our country that is grounded in the notion of humanity, what it is to be a human being, what it is to be a human being. And that is something that I think the National Service can be in the vanguard of doing.
Yes, today as well in the statement from the opposition, they talked as well about, spending more money in the our armed forces, with the invent of having oil money now and everything that is happening around us, that there is an urgent need for us to look at it and better invest in our military. What's your thought on that?
I want to start off by saying I'm not a militarist, but I'm
Mhm,
not
I know.
I'm not a crazy pacifist. And so therefore, I believe that we are in a situation where we have no choice. We
Mhm,
have to anticipate that our neighbor is going to keep this threat over our head for the foreseeable future.
future.
And
Mhm,
so, therefore, we have to act based on that. And so, we have no choice than to
mhm,
build in a formidable military. I
mhm,
am, I am skeptical about a formidable military because I know governments usually use the military against their own people, and so ideologically, I am very leery about that. But I
mhm,
am a realist. I'm not a
mhm,
stupid ideologue. I'm a realist. We have we have to find a way to beef up our military. We
mhm,
have to find a way, and we have the means by which the financial means by which to do it. And
mhm,
so I would support a beefing up of our military, and I would to assuage, to make people like myself comfortable. We have to have a military that is grounded in the notion that the use of the military is for border defense and not against the people of our country. And I think so, beefing up the military, but giving the military a kind of ideology that says your role is to defend our
and
territorial
your turn.
sovereignty and not to be a lapdog of any government in
Political.
Guyana. And so, yes, I would support beefing up our military, spending more money on our military, but going hand in hand with that is to ensure that the ideology of our military is very, very, very clear as regards their role.
Well, Dr. Hines, what I will say on that, because I do believe the military of itself, that is the ideology. What I will say as we do that, what we have to guard against is the type of government that we leave over the military, because there's so many things written in our constitution, in our laws, that suggest and state very clearly what are the roles. And I mean, in this time where there's so much technology out there, the military should have that kind of, equipment. We should have those things. But for me, it becomes personal as well for all Guyanese to understand, as we make steps towards those things, what is becomes the most important thing is the government that we place at the head or in the helm of our country. Because if that government ideology is incorrect, we can't say that any other institution that falls under that government will work accordingly.
I'm smiling because as a teacher, I like students like you in my class. In that you've hit on something very important, and that is that governments can bend the role of institutions.
Mm,
Autocratic governments and autocratic leaders usually bend the role of look at the United States, a country that is grounded in institutions, and yet we had one man who has threatened and continues to threaten to
yeah.
override those. So your warning is very important. Governments and governance are extremely important. And so, Shanika, look, part of my objectives now as I move into the sunset of my political life. I hope not the sunset of my life, but
Correct.
sunset of my
Not
political
now. Not now at all.
life. Is to really create a new Guyanese nation, to socialize a new generation of people who see politics, who see society in new ways. All
Mm,
right? Because ultimately, the things we go to the nation, we go to the society in order to recruit our politicians. And
mhm,
so, if we create a new society with a new thinking, a new understanding of what it means to be a country, what power is, what government is, what governance is, then we are better able to get leaders who lead in the way that you are talking
yes.
about.
Mhm,
And I think that is our challenge now. I think the 30 odd years of the PPP has really soured. It has
damage.
rottened. It has rottened the polity of Guyana. It has overturned some of the values that, as Guyanese and Caribbean people, we developed in the struggle against colonialism. We developed certain values and certain notions of
Mhm,
life, of society, and so forth. And the PPP has trampled over those things in the last 30 years. I'm not saying they're singular in that, but I'm saying that they are most culpable. They are
mhm,
most guilty of
mhm,
deliberately trampling on the values that we brought with us over the last 300, 400 years. And so
mhm,
the challenge for us is to go back to the drawing board and begin to fashion a new polity, a new person. And I am encouraged when I see young people like yourself, not just because you all are activists, but
mhm,
you all are grappling with the issues of our time in a way that your parents didn't grapple with them because your parents did not see what you all are seeing today. All
mhm,
right? Your parents did not see the massive wealth that is coming to Guyana and what that means for transformation of the society and transformation of the world. And so I'm encouraged when I see young people like yourself really grappling with what it is, because look, our country is not an easy country. Let us not pretend. Sometimes, we try to feel good. One people, one nation, one destiny, Eloise one, and so on. And those things are good because what they do is that they inspire us to work harder. But we have to understand that history has dealt us a bad hand.
mhm,
And but that's not the end of the road. History has always dealt us a
mhm.
bad hand. And it is the capacity for us to overcome. We
Come.
are the survivors, as Brother Bob Marley said. We are the survivors. Daniel in the lion's den, we survived that. Right?
Mhm,
The man made, as Bob Marley said, the man made Miss Philosophy. We survived that. Right? And I think our young people are beginning to realize that Guyana is not just this place where you're born today, you try to make some money, and if you don't make it, you move out and you go where, and so on. Look
mhm.
at the way in which people outside of Guyana have Guyana at heart. You can go
Ah,
through this audience here now, and
yes.
in the middle of the day, people in New York,
London, all over.
London,
Mhm,
that they at their work. But they're
mhm,
batting for Guyana while they're doing, as we say, doing the white people walk, right? And it's an enormous energy of our people, all right? And I think as political people, we can only help that process along. And so, yes, I am encouraged by what I see, that ultimately we are going to begin to get governments that reflect a new thinking. You see,
mhm,
um, I am biased. You are biased. We belong to political parties and we would like to see our party in government. But when I listen to you, I think I'm hearing more than just vote for my party. You're talking about voting for a type of government, a type of governance. You see, I do not believe that the PNC has all the answers to Guyana's problems, nor the
Nobody does.
or the
Nobody does.
WPA. And I think young people now understand that. But we
Mhm,
do believe that we have to start someplace.
mhm.
And there are some people who are
Than
better
other.
prepared than others to start at a particular place. And it's where you start that matters. Because
Correct.
in the final analysis, we're not going to govern Guyana effectively without the PPP. Half, half the society think that they're good. Half the society vote for them. But what we
Mhm.
have got to do, we have got to create the environment in which the PPP recognizes that Guyana is not a sport place. Guyana is not a place where you lick down other people. Guyana is not a place where you spew your ethnic notions of dominance and impose it on the society. So, in a sense, we have to create the environment to make the PPP into real human beings, political human beings, because right now they're brutes, they're political brutes. And we have to make the environment to turn them from political brutes into political human
A
beings
human
with
being.
conscience.
Thank you very much. And as always, there's so many other things that I wanted to talk to you about, but clearly, we are out of time, and hope to catch up some other time so that we can continue this conversation, because we didn't even get to talk about as in the last couple of weeks, there has been even more pushing in terms of the reduction of freedom of speech in this country and all these other things that happening. We couldn't get to talk about that today, but I hope we get to talk about it soon, because that's a whole other topic and thing all by itself. But as we wrap up today, I want to give you the opportunity to make your pitch as we are going through everything that is happening. What do you want to tell the Guyanese people at this time?
You know, when our foreparents walked out the gates of the plantation, and and our sisters and brothers came afterwards, and they endured indentured servitude and walked out from there in 1917. Whatever else happened to us, we walked out with our dignity. And those people, those of you who know me, know that I'm big on dignity. And because dignity is what defines the human being. Dignity is what separates us from other species in our cosmos. Our sense of dignity. It is not that other species don't have dignity.
Mhm.
They do, but we are conscious of it. We are conscious of it. And we walked out with that dignity. And I'm saying that today we are faced with another challenge, another test of whether we are going to gamble that dignity away or
Mhm.
whether we are going to stand firm and realize what our foreparents who laid the foundations for us wanted to realize. We have the responsibility, this generation, and I include myself in this generation, we have the responsibility of realizing not only our dreams, but realizing the dreams of those who laid the foundations for us. They hoped for this day. They hope for this day when we would have the resources to do what they couldn't do. I've heard stories where our foreparents, when they were about to buy land to create the villages, they would say, "Oh God, look at land of God country. Look at land of God country." And they dreamt of how that land could transform their lives. They met, they met obstacles. And they hope that one day will come when resources will be there. And that day has come. And our responsibility is to manage those resources
Resources and manage them
and to
well.
do it in a way that creates the human environment that our foreparents wanted us. And I'm saying, I am confident Venezuela is not going to go away. But we've got to endeavor to beat Venezuela. And we can beat Venezuela. Small acts does cut down big tree. That's not an idle statement. It comes out of the wisdom of people who have been through it. We have done it before. And I'm saying that if my words mean anything to anybody who is live here or who will look at this program in the days and the weeks to come, is to say to you to believe that we can do it, and to believe that the PPP must not define who we are. We must not allow the PPP to define who we are at Guyanese. As Brother Bob Marley, I'm in a Marley mood today. We are what we are. And that's the way. That's the way it's going to be. You can't educate I for no equal opportunity. Talking about my freedom, my people's freedom. This is what we're fighting. We're fighting Maduro and Venezuela for our freedom, and we're fighting the Ali Jagdio axis for our freedom. And we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it because we believe that Guyana is a civilization.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hinds. As I always say, it's a privilege to have you. And, it's always enlightening when we sit and talk. I want to thank my viewers as well for joining us today. And of course, it's always good to ensure that we give you the necessary information at the time, and that we can discuss the issues and bring clarity as we work to put this country in a better place altogether. And I'll end by saying, as I always do, every citizen has their own responsibilities, and we as citizens, we must hold our government accountable, and we also must ensure that as a nation, whatever we do, whatever we say, however we put it, we must put our country first, and we must continue to fight for this country called Guyana. Viewers, I want to thank you for viewing today. Continue to keep in your prayers the family, the friends, the colleagues of our fallen soldiers, and the two survivors, as well as we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. Do have a wonderful afternoon, and of course, I will see you here again next week, same time, 12:30 to 1:30. Continue to follow our platforms on Facebook and YouTube so we can keep you updated. Thank you.